I will not sort of run around and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to actually talk about my experience as well as my vision in terms of game science and how we can actually use it in all sorts of different ways. And it is my pleasure to be here today, and I always love Madrid, and even though I don't actually speak Spanish, but I know Hola, I know Sylvester, I know La Caña, and but yeah, I think that is enough to get me, what I need. So today I'm going to talk about what I believe should be the way we look at game science in terms of different challenges and opportunities which are motivated by the fact that our digital and physical experiences, spaces, and contexts are blurring. That would include your informal and informal experiences as well. How can we merge these contexts and spaces to ensure that we will get the best benefit from the opportunities from the digital world as well as physical experiences that could potentially give us a lot of benefits in terms of our learning. So I'm based at the Disruptive Media Learning Lab, and we are actually looking at how to use different technologies, different techniques, different approaches in changing the way we practice teaching and learning. And there are so many different researchers who try to encourage staff, students to try and be creative and co-create and co-design solutions for teaching and learning, and that includes games and gamification as well, which is one of the key focuses we have. And Bataza has been there, so we had quite a good time going around Coventry and having a bit of lunch and a lot of drinks. So what we're trying to do is to move from this model into something which is more pervasive. As you know that we have good access to all sorts of different information online. You can use different mobile apps. You've got your iPhones, you've got your Samsung Androids, you've got your tablets, you've got all sorts of different platforms that you can actually use anywhere, anytime. So this is where we think the future of learning will be. We will not be confined by these walls. We could even do a conference or a seminar from different parts of the world, and we could experience it in all sorts of different ways, in a more hybrid way. As I said before, the use of mobile in schools, even in the UK now, so there are a lot of different classes which would focus on the use of tablets. Even the schools would provide tablets for the students as well. And at our own university, especially in the engineering and computing department, the students are given free Chromebook for them to actually do a lot of work together, as well as accessing different information during the classroom as well. And this sort of link to how we could actually flip learning. So what we're doing is to encourage students to search for information during a lecture, or to flip the lecture itself so that it will be more action-based, activity-based, as well as problem-based learning, where we will focus on solving problems by using different technologies, as well as the social interaction between the students within the classroom setting, and they would do their theories and concepts outside the classroom. So this is where, how we can actually try out different solutions that will be able to support the flipping of this. So we need to look at the motivation aspect in terms of extrinsic and intrinsic. I'm not going to go deep into this, but we need to understand the learners, and we need to go back to basic. This is a famous painting which is called Children at Play. Things were simpler in the olden days. We play and learned outdoor. We try different things. We learn from our mistakes. And this is one of the things that we are doing at the lab. where we try to test early, fail fast, meaning that you try different things. If it's not working, fine, move on and learn from it. And this is like I think in Latin, ludus stands for both play and learn. So why can't we combine that? So this is where the interest in games and gamification comes in. And as you can see, there are so many different games out there which can be reused for learning purposes. And the fact that you've got serious games, game-based learning, educational games, gamification, all the different terms, they're all trying to do different things, but trying to achieve the same aim. And the fact that things are very sort of like these different terms are merging as well, because all we need to do is to learn about the users, try to engage them in a more interesting and creative way, and games, game technology and game concepts would provide a lot of opportunities for us to actually look at how we look at learning, how can we discretize the action of learning into something which is more game-like or playful. And at Coventry University, we are working with, we are working on different projects, EU-funded projects, national projects, as well as internal projects. They are looking at different games that we can actually create to address different issues. For example, the Prepare game, it was a game to sort of help teachers to teach sex and relationships and sex education at school. And they were saying that it is difficult to teach something which is very abstract and sensitive. For example, sexual coercion or sexual pressure. Relationship issues is difficult to teach because you can't teach them. You can only provide some scenarios and you can discuss it within a classroom setting. And this game and the abstract which was sent to one of the psychological sort of event has won best contribution to psychology, because what we're trying to do is to encourage students between the age of 13 to 15 years old to talk about this issue, because it's quite difficult to teach. Even when they were trying to use videos, it was not working, but this game was very simple. It was the quality, seriously, it was not that good. But the fact that it's doing what it needs to do, talking about things in a very fun way, and the teachers could actually encourage students to discuss about their issues. And this is what I mean about a hybrid sort of way of learning. It's more than blended learning. It's all about trying to sort of connect the emotional experience that you have that will make it more authentic. Children, like, there are still children from 13 to from 14 to 16 to 13 to 15 years old. They talk about the experiences, sexual pressure, and the teachers say that what should we do with this information, because they are, at that age they should not have that experience where people pressure them to have sex. So these are the things that we can actually do with games, is to try and get people to talk about their experiences as well. Just quickly play these two games at the same time. This is example of the one on the left. Is a mobile game, and it is set in an informal setting. It's trying to encourage migrants coming into another country to learn about the culture, to learn about the language, to learn about all sorts of different things in the way that we're trying to help them to map their own experiences in their own country and their new experience as well, so that they will be able to understand the differences and the similarities as well. Because one thing that we're trying to do in the UK is to try to encourage people to, in the way, assimilate more in the community. So by using something that's quite fictional, people will just use it and try it out, and they can download it from iTunes as well as Google Play. And one thing interesting about this is when we try to give them resources on how do you assimilate in your community, they are not interested at all. But when you give them games, they say, okay, this is interesting, let's see what I can learn from it. And the one on the right is more about trying to teach or train teachers to, in a way, improve the way they teach within a classroom setting. And it is based on inquiry-based learning. And it's trying to sort of give teachers some different scenarios of how can you engage your learners. Because sometimes it's quite difficult to say, what should I say, or how should I deal with some questions from the students? How do I make sure that they'll be more curious about the subject and whatnot? So these are two examples of having something which is more mobile and something which is more desktop, something that is to support teachers, something to support the general public, even students to assimilate within the university community. And this is another project that we work on with one of the partners from Gala, and he decided to do his PhD at Coventry University as well. So we thought that we should combine our expertise and our knowledge and our interest in gamification in terms of trying to support teamwork within a classroom setting. So what we did was we piloted this university, and 3 different faculties are actually using it, and we are trying to see the differences between collaboration and competition. And the PhD, I think, should complete by the end of this year. So there'll be some interesting findings from there. So I will play a short video.
The project involves StarQuest, which is an online platform, and it's based on gamification principles, achieving points, badges, and leaderboards. And we implemented it in a level 2 module in sport and exercise psychology. And what StarQuest allows the students to do is to bring information in small groups in a collaborative manner, but also it allows us as academics to then disseminate that information more widely into the classroom.
StarQuest is a social collaboration platform. If you think of Facebook, but as a tutor you decide what the topics are that folks can go and find things about. And when a student wants to go and find something, have 250 different sources at their fingertips where they can pull the material in. The material's immediately shown. You can watch the videos within the platform, you can look at the PDFs, you can comment on things. You can also ask for feedback and specific feedback from colleagues. So it's like Facebook, but it's directed. And the idea very much is in small groups, folks can collaborate together to create and bring together the research they need from a variety of digital sources.
Initially, the reason I was involved is there was an email from the DMLL which asked for people to be, if they were interested, and I'm very interested in innovative technology and innovative teaching practice. I thought this was a great opportunity to implement StarQuest. And so what's happened really is people like Sylvester Arnab have supported us throughout the process. So from the beginning and the introduction of StarQuest to the formulation and the analysis of the results.
Right, so this project is quite interesting. We are trying to inform the university that we can actually use gamification in all sorts of different ways. It doesn't have to be a game. It would have to be something that is supported by some psychological concepts as well as motivational aspects as well. So the next stage for this is to try to understand the students in terms of their motivations and see how we can support them in all sorts of different ways. And one way that we look at gamification as well as game-based learning at the university is to look at it in a holistic way, in a modular way where we sort of try and work with the lecturers saying that what are you trying to solve? What are different gaps? What are different issues? What learning plans? What learning aims that you need to do? And then talk about the dynamics. Are you going to be, will it be like a solo aspect of the learning, or is it going to be like a group work, so on and so forth? And then you would talk about how do you gamify it? How do you make it interesting? Is it going to be digital games? Is it going to be gamification? So on and so forth. And the fourth layer is like, now, okay, is this going to be digital technology? Is it going to be a board game? Is it going to be card game? Is it going to be just some role playing that you can actually do within a classroom setting? So this model has helped lecturers to really think about what they want to do in terms of their own teaching and learning, which is interesting because at first they thought, oh, I don't know anything about games. But I was telling them, but you know how to play. You've done that since your childhood. So why don't you use the same experience and see how we can actually work with students and staff at the same time. And one thing that has come up from this as well is the creation of a pervasive game, which is quite similar to location-based game, but it's more than just location-based game. It's all about trying to enact different role-playing as well as different problem-solving at different parts of the location that you would pick. In this case, we pick Coventry University to teach Italian. And we're working with the students and the lecturers to create this. And we also collaborate with the MIT in Boston in trying to create the platform that will allow us to actually personalize the learning based on the context of Coventry University. And this is still ongoing, and the randomized control trial is going to be carried out in November and December this year. And what I've learned from the experiences, the different experiences I had in game-based learning, serious games, educational games, gamification, is there are three key things that I think is quite interesting. The first one is assessment. How do we support assessment? Because most of the time, when we introduce new platforms at the university, the students will ask, am I going to be assessed? If I'm not going to be assessed, I'm not interested at all. So how do we use digital technology to assess experience, to assess learning outcomes, to assess the learning process that the students will go through? And it's quite interesting that today we'll hear about learning analytics that will fit quite well in what we need in terms of assessment. But this would bog down to the pedagogy of it, to the teachers, what sort of measures do you need? And the second one is personalization. It's very important. We could create games that would support a group of students collectively, but I believe that if we can find a way to personalize the experience, that would be more interesting than playing the same game for each of the different students we have. But the issue with this is, of course, cost, the complexity of the algorithms that you are going to use. But these are the things that we can actually explore further. And the third one is serendipity, meaning that can someone learn something else that they would normally not learn within a classroom setting? For example, that you would learn something about a different culture while learning math. Something that possibly could be designed into the experience, or something that could be discovered during the experience itself. So from a game designer point of view, how do we support this? And from the learner's point of view, would this encourage them to learn more because they discover that they've gone through the process, suddenly they've learned, or they've discovered a lot of surprises along the way that would encourage them to learn further. And this would be in line with the fact that we need to learn how to learn and experience learning in a different ways and not in how we used to. And one of the things that we're doing to try and encourage this is by having a campaign at the university. So we've got a 6-week sort of campaign that we're doing that's trying to get the lecturers, the professional services, the students, as well as the industry to come and work together and think about game design. It doesn't have to be technical. It is something to do with how do you solve problems, how can you use the way that we design games to help you to look at problems, contextualize them, and provide solutions for them as well. And it has been quite useful at the university. And all these experiences that we have from the Serious Games Institute, as well as from the lab itself, and the experience we have with the partners across the different networks that we have been involved in, is to think about how to support anytime, anywhere learning, meaning you can access learning at any time, anywhere indoor, outdoor classroom setting in your homes or with your friends and families. So we're trying to make learning as lifelong as possible, meaning that people would be motivated to learn outside of a formal setting. So there are 15 partners, and we are going to coordinate this as a coordinator, and your university is part of this as well. So it is one of the projects that was funded this year. And it will be quite interesting to see how it's going to pan out, because it's going to be kicked off in January. And it'll be quite interesting to see what we will come up with this. But the idea is to support learning which is more ubiquitous and more pervasive within classroom setting, outdoor setting, and then at home. And the fact that most of the time when we think about learning, we think about learners and teachers. But we have more than that. We have learners, teachers, we've got the parents, you've got the community. And the community would include business owners, would include the government, would include the industry, you include anyone who would be able to enrich the student's experience in terms of learning. So this is what we are trying to achieve. And we are looking at learning analytics, we are looking at gamification, we are looking at the use of pervasive gaming, how do we contextualize learning, and we are interested to look at future advancement in technology as well. For example, the use of iBeacons, which would allow you to transform, for example, this room into a playground. How can we support that in terms of the technical, the design, as well as the usability of it? And it will be quite interesting to see what it will come out with. Hopefully, in a year's time, when we come back and talk about it, we would be able to show you something that would be interesting and that you could actually employ in your own sort of schools or universities. And it's quite interesting that when we do serious gaming and gamification, everyone is talking about technology. But when you talk to people in the community, they are not interested that much in technology. They are interested in how can I improve my life by, learning from what you have experienced. And what we are looking at here is gamification. And this is one of the projects that I'm involved in. It's called Playing for Real. It's trying to support the unemployed in 7 different countries in Europe. How can we change the perspective in terms of the situations, the circumstances by using gamification? I know it sounds a bit abstract, but what we're trying to do is to help them to try and look at the problems in a game design thinking. So they would have to actually level themselves up, understanding the weaknesses and the strengths, understanding how they can actually support one another, understanding how they can actually move to different levels in their own life by working together. So what we did was we created a program for them, and we work with the unemployed themselves, and we work with the social workers as well. So this is like a co-designing, co-creation sort of thing again, which we focus on, and we think that it is very important to include the users in every single thing that you do. And the illustration that you see there is just a simple illustration that we created to explain what we're trying to do. Because one thing that we found when we work in the community, the unemployed would ask us, what are you going to give us? Are you going to give us vouchers? Are you going to give us any money? I said that we're not going to give you anything. I said, well, but we explain what we're trying to do. I said, oh, this is fun. It's like there's no risk. I'm not going to lose or gain anything, but I might gain something in the process, and that goes back to serendipity. So they would learn something that they think that they're not interested in. They might be interested in something totally different. So we've got an e-game book, which is a non-linear game book that we put on the website. The website is going to be up soon. And we've just completed the program itself, which will be piloted in the community. We've done a small-scale pilot, but we are going to do a larger scale in the real world, so that will be quite scary. Right, I think 37 minutes. The conclusion is really that when we talk about trying to support learning by using games and gamification, especially in a hybrid learning space where digital and physical merge, informal and formal, we need to reduce the barriers. When we talk about blended learning before, it's like distant learning, or just put everything on a website and let them access their own information. It's not going to work. Physical experience, gamification, and see how we can support learners. Mental challenge. What I mean by this is how do we keep them interested? How do we keep them enthused with learning? How can we challenge them? Social experience is important. I'm on Facebook 24/7. If I could stay awake for 24/7, I'll be on my Facebook all the time. Because I love interacting with people from different countries, my friends from Malaysia, because I'm from Malaysia myself. And I will always keep in touch with my sisters, with my families and everything on Facebook. So the social experience, both digital and physical experience, needs to be merged, and it is very important. And immersion. Immersion it doesn't have to be a virtual reality. It doesn't have to be something that is so technical. It's all about the immersion of the mind. That you can be immersed in a concept, in a context, in an experience, and this is what we want. But how can we support this? These are all challenges and opportunities at the same time that we are looking to address this next few years. And I'm sure that with new technologies advancing, we will see different things coming up, and it is quite an interesting opportunity. Thank you very much.
Now there's
Any
time
questions?
for questions. You need to repeat the question, and you can make the question in Spanish.
Okay.
So you need to repeat because there is no any other microphone. So,
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
¿Hay alguna pregunta? ¿La queréis hacer en español? ¿Lo podéis hacer en español?
It must be very clear.
¿Cuál sería la mejor edad para empezar con este tipo de métodos?
Do you think it's the best age for beginning with this kind of techniques? I mean, serious game or gamification. Do you think there is any kind of age or range that will be more appropriate?
Right.
For?
The question is, are there any specific age range that would be good for games, gamification, and serious games? And I believe that you have to start young. As you can see now, there are all sorts of different programs that would allow students in kindergarten to program and code games in using block methods, using sort of drag and drop sort of user interfaces. So there are all sorts of different opportunities for people from different ages, from young, from kindergarten to someone in their 60s perhaps, that would help them to understand or solve problems or to keep their mind active and to give them some sense of an experience of how they can get into the area. For example, I've met a few students from some schools that are only 15 years old and they could program better than me. They could create games. They were showing me. I said, "Oh my God, you could do." They said, "Oh my God, you could do my job." Yeah. So it's like open to anyone, and I think we should make it sort of inclusive so that everyone can get involved. That's why we want to do this game design thinking. We are starting at the university. We will open it up to the community. That's the plan, and we have something which is called Fab Lab. If you don't know what that is, you can search on the internet. Fab Lab is an opportunity to involve the community in science and engineering and electronics. So we are opening one center in Coventry as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there any plan to introduce this method in high school in your country?
The question is, are there any plans to do the same sort of approach in a high school setting? Yes. We have lecturers at our university who are actually involved in this, and they all said that their children would like to get involved. Can we open it up? I said that we can't open it up first. We need to make sure that everything is working. We've got all the measures, because all I can think about is research. I would have to make sure that the research design is perfect before I put it outside the university. But the plan for the second phase is to include the community. So that would encourage students from high schools as well as primary schools to get involved. Because it would be nice to see someone like within the range of 50, 60 years old with the 20s, and then in the teens, and then someone is younger, to work together and create something. I think it's wonderful.
Do you know any good practices about introducing like assessment-based learning with games, but for small development teams?
The question is, do I know any examples of games that is supporting assessment?
But for small development
Yeah.
teams, like usually a small development team doesn't have the resources to implement a formal or a big infrastructure
Yeah.
for assessments. So are there any other options?
Yeah, there are two ways you can look at it. Either you want to look at.
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, the question is, how can we support a smaller group, a team of designers and developers in trying to introduce assessment by using games? And I think you can look at it in two ways: summative and formative. Summative is quite easy to do, because all the different games would allow you to provide feedback at the end of each level, at the end of each session, which the tutors can actually use to inform their perspective of how the students is progressing throughout the game. So you can look at any examples, and it will be it's up to your algorithms in terms of what measures that you want in terms of the game itself. For example, the prepare game is all about scores, but scores are very simple. It doesn't tell you a lot of things, but it would help the lecturers to understand the progress. In terms of formative, this is the one that I think Balthazar is trying to look at as well in terms of learning analytics. So you can actually download the API, learning analytics, which you can include in your game. And I believe that because UCM and Balthazar is involved in a project which is called REG, and are looking at how to actually include learning analytics with a game engine, for example, Unity. So that is something that a small game development team could actually look at and use, because you should not start from scratch. You should just reuse whatever you have. But one thing which is very important is to make sure that you work with the teachers or the lecturers or anyone who is interested in assessment to make it formative, to formalize it. So what are the measures? What are you trying to assess? And how this assessment would inform the final grades of the student, for example.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Then he will stay here also for lunch, so if you have any more specific questions, maybe you can contact him directly to talk. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for inviting me.